are my friends. Welcome to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru, where I, the host, the great Brian Last, read your questions sent in on Twitter and email to the man from Castle Cornette, the Louisville Lip, Mr. Jim Cornette.
You see, now you've started them off, because not only did you drag that hello out, but now I'm their friend too, or they're my friends too. Just because you're the host of this program and I've been relegated to a subordinate role, a co-starring position here, doesn't mean that the people are not my friends as well. So if you're gonna go, instead of saying hello, if you're gonna say hello, then the least you can do is make them our friends.
Swifty told me I'm doing a good job.
Have you? I haven't talked to him in 3 months.
I talk to him every day.
Is he still using that phone booth?
I'm not going to talk about his methods in a public forum.
I've been trying to get a hold of him because there's some irregularities.
There may be a reason he's not taking your calls.
There's some irregularities I need to discuss. I'll have you know.
There's a lot of other things we need to discuss. I'll have you know right here on Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru.
Yeah, speaking of irregularities, we've got some irregular fucking people and questions to talk about today here on the program. Go ahead, finish your spiel. So.
Hey, do you hear the new Budokan or just Budokan passed away last week?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I didn't realize that he played roller derby also. He apparently played roller in the 70s, I guess.
I'm surprised there aren't more Southern California indie guys that did roller derby.
You would think, especially being able to take the rail bump, But holy shit, who was the guy? Meltzer tweeted it. It's a clip from like the late 50s. The guy that took the head first over the rail bump and never touched anything and landed on the floor.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Oh, it was the goddamnest thing I've ever seen. It was the greatest roller derby bump, and apparently this bump was like his version of Ray Stevens upside down. He could do it anytime, anywhere, and he was known for that. And boy, he was going 100 miles an hour, and just as he goes toward the rail, instead of, the guys used to do the old cartwheel over it, and you'd grab it and one hand over on the edge and, feet first. No, he just went head first over the thing, flipped, and landed on his back out on the floor. And it was the bank track, so he flew a ways. It was amazing.
I always like the heel move where they're going to fall, but it doesn't happen yet. You kind of see them flailing, and their arms are going, and their belly's going in and out, and then they fall.
The Weeble Wobble. The Weeble Wobble.
How do you think you would have done booking roller derby?
Oh, man, when I watched it every week, when I watched it every week, I was so young I couldn't have booked anything. But if I could have watched it every week when I had reached the age of reason, which according to some people was a couple weeks ago, possibly, then I think I would have been good, because it was very wrestling-like. It was created the heel team, the babyface team. They even had team managers. The interviews on the inside track in between match races. I would have liked to have taken a shot at that.
I know it's not prime stuff, but I always liked when ESPN Classic would air late 70s Olympic Auditorium T-Bird stuff with Ralphie Valadares and Miss Georgia Haas and a guy in a chicken outfit for reasons I don't know. And the fact that it was in the Olympic, the same place where wrestling was there, same sign. And I always loved those shows. They always, I wish they still aired them, actually.
It's like wrestling. Each successive revival was less popular because it. Remember the one they did on, what was it, the Nashville Network? Was that the one that had alligator pits? And it got so silly and foolish and phony and showy that finally people and I guess now people are there's an audience that wrestling is found for that kind of thing, but same thing for the most part has happened to the wrestling business.
Alligator pits. Next thing you're going to say is they're going to do a snake pit around the ring.
Hey, we didn't do it. We didn't do it. We just thought about it.
But hold on, when you talked about it the other day, I was like, wow, that's an interesting concept. But then I started thinking about it. In reality, if you only have a few snakes in there, would it look as spectacular as you want it to look?
No, the fucking Jake was talking about having like 8 or 10 of those big fucking 6-foot long fucking snakes in there or whatever. And we only had an 18-foot ring, so I wouldn't have been in there, obviously. And I mean, I guess it's the kind that don't bite you or whatever. And he knew what to. Of course, there we were. I was really trying to draw a house. Then we're relying on Jake Snake Roberts' expertise in anything related to danger. So
Yeah, this is also in the midst of the period of time where he started getting bitten by his own snakes. Never happened in the WWF, but all of a sudden on indie shows.
I did not know that.
Didn't he once get choked out by his own snake in the ring?
Oh, you know what? You're right. It wrapped around him and wouldn't let go, and they had to pry it off or cut it off with a bandsaw or something. Yeah.
So there's a lesson for you somewhere in there, kids.
Well, we didn't do the snake pit match, but that when you think about it, that would have been Jake the Snake Roberts' version of the Tennessee chain match or the Funk's Texas death match or the specialty match, Wahoo's Indian strap match. That should have been Jake's match, wrestle in a pit of snakes.
I always like when guys had their own themed specialty matches.
Well, then now that would require guys to actually go to more than one place and be main event stars on a regular basis and get the match over and then just be able to call their own shots. And that'll never happen again.
Jeff Walton in L.A. came up with the Roman Gladiator death match.
Yeah, I remember. But that's not one that caught on except with Freddie Blassie in Los Angeles.
That's right.
But, you know, that's interesting. Here's another thing the business has lost while we're on it. Guys would main event stars in a particular territory would suggest to the booker, hey, how about if we have this kind of match? And if it drew, they would do more than one. And generally they'd try to do it with the same guy. And over a period of time, that guy would be identified, or the booker would say, hey, why don't you do this kind of match? Whatever. But over a period of time, that guy would be identified with that match. And then when he'd go to other territories, he could tell George Scott in the Carolinas, which I understand a lot of people relied on telling George Scott what they'd done other places. But they tell George Scott, hey, I drew a ton of money working for, McGurk in Oklahoma or Vern in Minnesota or wherever with this match and this program and angle, and they would do it, and they would establish that match in that territory. So when you had these guys that had their special kind of match, and they could travel to different places and establish it and draw money, if it was a heel with the local baby face or vice versa. And then sometimes if, with Lawler, they had pile driver matches with him and Sweetan. I believe, was it in Florida or was it, it was down in Houston, because Sweetan in that part of the country was known as the master of the pile driver. And then Lawler gets on national TV, pile driving Andy Kaufman. So they had pile driver matches. It worked because people were known for those matches and those moves and those finishes. And Dory Funk Sr. created the Texas Death Match, and they only had him in Amarillo until Terry and Dory, became national traveling stars, and then that became a huge thing to do. But now they have the same match for the same company every year, Elimination Chamber or whatever, but guys are not noted. Is there anybody noted now for a match anymore?
Well, The Undertaker had the casket match. I can't remember the last casket match.
Yeah. Edge and Christian did the tables, ladders, and chairs until they all realized that, well, that's why we're all retired now.
Yes, that's a good point.
There you go.